Intuition, for people who are maybe struggling with what that means, is something is telling me to not turn down that street. Something is telling me to not make that turn. It's like Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder, right? There have been periods of my life where I feel very disconnected and very much like what's blocking me right now? Ego is outside source driven.
Welcome to the show, Samantha.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. This is really such a fun way to, end my week, start my weekend. Yeah.
I love it. So tell the audience a little bit about who you are, how your brand started, and really your magic that you share with the world.
Sure. Thank you. So my name is Samantha. I am an intuitive card reader and mentor. I work with a lot of women and brands in the fashion, beauty, wellness, and lifestyle space in New York City. And I am just so passionate, and I have fell into it really following my own intuitive calling to begin card reading and providing intuitive mentorship. But really what that stemmed from is my passion that I've always had to help and improve other people's lives and provide insight and expansion. My mission with my sessions is to help people build more trust in themselves, and in turn trust in the universe, and trust their own intuition and strengthen their own intuition. Realizing that when we see what's before us in your card spread, or just when we get to talking about what's coming up and coming out, that you kind of know the answers, right? And that's the magic of the moment of seeing, whoa, this is exactly what I needed to hear. This is exactly the reminder I needed. And then we dive in to using cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, journaling, affirmations, mindset development, really rooted in manifestation and really having a powerful mindset to know that you are empowered to accomplish everything that you can. So I kind of go a bit beyond just the card reading aspect, and I married, for me, the two of kind of the psychology aspect with the spirituality aspect.
I love that so much. And for someone's listening and they're like, what's a card reading? How would you explain that?
Yeah, I love that question. So card readings a lot of people associate them immediately to tarot. That's the most popular form of a card reading. There's also oracle cards. And a card reading is you have your deck, whether you're using tarot or oracle, and as the reader, everyone operates differently. Some people will have their clients touch the deck and pick the cards themselves. I like to shuffle. I started doing this during 2020. So I actually started doing this virtually, remotely. So I've always done it where I shuffle and pull for my client. And so you'll shuffle until you feel like you're intuitively in a good spot. And then we'll pull cards from there. And those cards unveil messages about where you're currently at in life. That's what I like to explain to clients. Sometimes I had one woman ask me, will this help me know if I'm going to get pregnant next year? And I'm like, well, I don't think we're going to go that far out here. But what this can do is provide you the insight for where you're currently at. And I would say immediate future. And like I said, I really root and read in the lens of you and your mindset and where you can grow from here. So every reader is a little bit different. Some people do read. I have a reader who I see and will sometimes do 12-month spreads. And those are really helpful too. So you kind of can go into different lenses and categories. But it's intuitive guidance through these cards that unveil messages that range. Tarot is the traditional tarot deck. Those messages are always the same. And that's what's different with Oracle. Oracle cards are up to each creator. So I have a deck themed around moonology and the phases of the moon. I have a deck called Work Your Light, which is all very angelic, spiritual, whimsical, beautiful messages and imagery. I have my affirmation deck, which is not even traditionally marketed as an oracle or spiritual intuitive deck, but I incorporated it as such. All these different themes can come out throughout all of the readings.
This is so cool. And I got a tarot reading for the first time actually in 2020. And I was like, oh, this is cool and this is exciting. And then I saw a psychic a couple months ago. And both times I had a similar experience. And I'm so happy we're touching on this. It was a similar experience of like I wasn't surprised, like, oh my God, it's like this big
Yes.
shocking thing. It was more of like a confirmation of
Yes.
where I felt like I was at. I just couldn't put my finger on that. Do you ever feel like you have that
Yes.
experience?
Totally, totally. It's as the recipient when I receive readings and as the reader giving the readings, that is, I would say that's the majority of the experience is like, wow, I just experienced this. You know, I had someone, one time the affirmation I pulled for them was, I am compassionate. I'm pretty sure that was it. And he was like, you would have no idea, because I was on the other side of the room, but I just said this on the other side of the room to my friend in our conversation. Like, I just talked about this. I've had people say, like, this was my mantra with my yoga instructor this morning for the affirmation that comes out. People who are like, I just worked on this exact mindset shift that we just themed the reading around with my therapist. So these are very common in the moment feedback from someone when I flip over the cards and we start discussing, and they're like, this is crazy. Like, you would have no idea, but I just talked about this. So that's what, as the reader, it's so amazing. Each experience is just as magical for me because I'm seeing someone who I don't know experience this in the moment as well.
Oh my God, that's so magical. I love this conversation so much because I think it's just bringing so much clarity to me. So I know it's definitely bringing clarity to people listening as well. Okay. I actually just had a personal experience. I love affirmation cards. And I guess that I never really looked at it in the sense where you're saying that, like, what it sounds like you're saying is that, like, you bring the magic to what you touch. Like, you bring the gold. And I think that's kind of the beauty of manifestation as well. And I had been thinking about this a lot of, like, you know, what really is manifestation like? Because a lot of people think it's like magic and like super woo and like super spiritual. And like, to me, it's always been extremely practical, where it's like, we all believe in magic to some degree, right? You watch a show, you watch this, like, we all have our imagination. We think of magic. But I think what really makes it beautiful, and what it sounds like you're doing through readings, is helping people find their own magic.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly on my website's getting relaunched literally in like the next 2 weeks, and
Yay!
I'm officially going to share it out. And on one of my main statements, I say that I help my clients unearth their hidden gem within, which is like another way of saying that. I come from a jewelry background, so like incorporating the jewelry metaphor was something that came through actually in a reading with my medium. This was almost 3 years ago, and I went into this session with my medium, and I wanted clarity on certain things, and one of them was career. And I had the idea of like, I want to launch a podcast, which is like, I just shared with you that I'm like, in the spring, it's coming. And I also, you know, should I continue my fashion styling career, or should I go into jewelry? Those were the 3 directions at that time in my life. And she literally said, I'm getting there's like 3 different things going on right now, and I can't tell you which one it is, but one of them is the hidden gem. And I was like, no matter what it ended up being, I was like, that's going to be something in my sphere. So I've kept that language incorporated.
That's so magical. I'd love for you to share more about your story and how you discovered this passion. And honestly, the word that I've been feeling really drawn to is like this uniqueness, and how you've turned this uniqueness now into a brand and a business. So give us the backstory.
Yeah, thank you. So, let me see. I can chat, so I will try to be as streamlined as possible. I'm an Aries Mercury, and that's like bing, bam, boom, and you can go all over the place. So I have always been very intuitive. I've always been very aware of that, dating as early back to middle school. Experiences of, not to get very deep and dark, but like a friend of mine had written a suicide note, and she didn't say that she did, but she was at her desk scribbling. Yeah. And I was like, I knew what she was doing without any, we had a mental health ceremony that day. But so like logically, I'm like, why would I assume she's writing that of all things, just because we had the mental health ceremony? And I was right. And that was my first awareness of like, there was no logical explanation to know that that's what she was doing. And thankfully, we lost touch over the years, but she seems very happy. She's married with children, and she's done, we of course got her some help and all of that. But that was my earliest experience with intuition.
Wow.
Being really aware of it. And that would happen throughout my life. I would meet someone and I'm like, they're going to be someone special. And I would just have these innate, what they say with intuition, it's an innate knowing, right? With no emotion attached. It's like, boom. So
it's happening.
Yes. So I've always have visitation dreams from loved ones who have passed. All of that stuff has always happened for me.
Yeah.
I have been in therapy for 10 years, and my therapist has become half like accountability life coach person for me when I'm not in therapy mode. And through that, learned a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy techniques for myself, expanded my own mindset, worked through heavy OCD that was sending me I was going to doctors every few weeks convinced I had something wrong with me. It was becoming where it was becoming a block in my life. So I experienced firsthand all what that work did for me, of working with someone to up-level my mindset, work beyond limiting self-beliefs, work through anxieties, new tactics and techniques to change my mindset. And I always felt like that was connected with the spirituality, like you were saying. Some people think manifestation and all this work is a little bit woo, and really it's quite practical. And all of that kind of background to say, I had an intuitive hit to offer the affirmation cards as an intuitive practice. I was listening to a card reader during stay at home, COVID, listening to a tarot reading on YouTube. And I was like, I wonder if I approached this with my affirmation deck for people and gave people intuitively an affirmation they might need. Because affirmations have helped me drastically. I have a tattoo that says I am.
I'm
way
so
before
big
I
on
started.
affirmations too.
Yeah, it's such it's a tangible psychology practice.
Yeah.
But, incorporating this intuitive little magic aspect to it was something that people really were drawn to. It took off very well with my following. A whole year later, a friend of a friend, I did not know she was the marketing director at the Moxie Hotels in New York City, but she's the marketing director, and reached out to me, was like, hey, I remember you do card readings, want to do them at the Moxie. And I was like, yes, I would love to. And then it took off from there in terms of gathering more bigger clients and doing events. And that is like, tried to be as streamlined as I could with that, but that's
amazing.
That background.
It's so crazy because after we scheduled the episode, I saw that you just did something with Goop, right?
Supergoop.
Supergoop. Yeah.
Yes, the sunscreen brand.
So cool.
Thank
so
you.
Cool.
Thank you. They're incredible.
Huge. They're like one of my favorite brands.
Oh, thank you. Yes. They're amazing. And that was such a fun event with Bala. We had an aura photography station.
So cool.
We had ear seating. It was so fun. It was so fun. So yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, Moxie, I was just with a really, really cool, private members only dating club for speed dating in real life called Amber Club. That was earlier this week. I'll be at Showfields next month. So it's so exhilarating to see it all. Like, the minute you already put in the work of like, this is what I want to be my thing. What starts flowing in.
I love that. And I want to dive deeper into that. Like claiming that knowing of, I know I'm made for more, but you actually making it happen. So a lot of the people that I work with, they will come to me and say, Giulia, like, I believe in manifestation. I believe I'm made for more. But now how do I turn that into something practical? How do I build a business? How do I build a brand, a social media presence? So I'd love to touch on that part. Where did you, or how did you find that confidence within to go from, I'm watching a YouTube video and I know I have these magical skills, to working with brands like Moxie, Supergoop, and all these amazing people? Yeah,
that's a great question. I feel like it's following your curiosity, to just lead you and putting yourself out there because you don't know who's watching. You never know. That's what I learned, especially with the Moxie reach out, was you never know who's paying attention. And then I think it's following not the branding, but like what you feel drawn to, right? So I come from a fashion and beauty background. So the aesthetic of my branding was kind of always how I branded my page as a fashion girl. I love
your branding.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, I mean, I personally kind of come from that world. I style photo shoots. That was what I was doing a lot.
So cool.
And it kind of stemmed into, and that was a lot of my resistance around owning this aspect of my life and creating this into my main brand was like, well, how do I do that? Instagram always favors the algorithm and they only serve my fashion content. And my mentor was like, you can still put out very fashiony content and but tailoring keeping your essence and tailoring the messaging to your self-development work, essentially. So I connected with what feels right for me. So really punchy, bold colors, while I love that, doesn't connect with me. I like kind of muted and earthy tones. So kept with that, searched through tons of fonts on Canva to what connected me. I started looking at who I like and save that. This is great inspo. This is great inspo. How are these things connecting? Right? Oh, okay. I'm noticing I really love, everyone I love kind of has this kind of typeface in their branding. Everyone I really love has this kind of color palette and contrasting and tone. And then you kind of start to see, this is where I naturally segue to. It goes, and as a fashion and background person, that stems into my wardrobe, stems into my interior decor taste. Like that's a consistent thing. So if you struggle with what brands do I like, I'm all over the place with that. Maybe look at like, what am I drawn to in clothing? What am I drawn to in interiors? What am I drawn to in aesthetically pleasing environments? When I walk into a place and I'm like, ooh, I wish this was my home. I wish this was my entire closet. And that can just help with like, okay, so if I do like the punchier colors, maybe mine is vibrant and funky and eccentric. And if you like more of the muted and the more minimal, then that goes into more of your branding. So that's a good analogy maybe to work with.
I love that. And I'm going kind of through like a rebrand myself of like, I've always kind of been the person that like, I like the neutrals, the beige, like you can see my chair here, like that's like so my vibe. But then I love like a little pop of color in a way like where it feels right. And then now that I think about it, I'm like, that's always been like my fashion sense. That's always been like what I'm drawn to. So it sounds like you're even bringing that back to like intuition and like your inner knowing.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. I think it's really listening to yourself, not overthinking what you see all over your Instagram, all over everywhere. The beauty of self-expression, whether it's through your brand, through your closet, through your home, is that it speaks to you and that it reflects exactly who you are. And then you in turn feel empowered. And it's this full circle evolution of I feel good in my skin, I feel good in my clothes, I feel good in my home, and now I feel like me. And that kind of can clear your mind and clear everything once you clean up your space and everything feels aesthetically beautiful for you. That it all feeds into a groundwork to move up from there.
I love that so much. So how would you say someone can find their intuition if they're struggling with that?
That's such a good question. It's always there, right? So everyone has intuition. Everyone can tap in, and it's a matter of being open to it. So I feel like with that comes being open to what comes in, and being connected to your inner self, really trusting yourself and starting to listen to that intuitive call. Intuition isn't always like, it's not going to be some like mystical vision, you know, it's not going to be like a that's so Raven moment. Intuition, for people who are maybe struggling with what that means, is it's as simple as something is telling me to not turn down that street. Something is telling me to not make that turn, to make, you know, something has told me to like not go. And it's those little hits. It's like Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder, right? It's like a little thing that's just, it's a nudge. And intuition, like I said, there's no really emotion attached. It's like just this innate, almost factual impulse that just boops right in. And just listening to that, being like, and seeing where that leads you to. And realizing, I can trust myself. It's like enabling self-trust in the process.
I love that. So would you say that it's something that's developed over time?
Yes. Yeah. I do think it's developed over time. I do, like I said, I think we all have it. And once you start tapping in to that and start trusting that muscle, it's a muscle. Once you start trusting that, it will feel stronger and stronger. And I also think this goes in through phases of life, who you're surrounding yourself with, where you're at the moment. I've had phases where I feel very disconnected from my intuition. And I'm like, I just feel like I'm not getting, for someone who normally feels very connected and very much aware and soaking it all in. There have been periods of my life where I feel very disconnected and very much like, like what's blocking me right now? And it could be who you're surrounding yourself with, where you're shifting your mind to, if you're not prioritizing and focused on yourself, right? If you're in a relationship and you're so hyper fixated on the other person's well-being, you're no longer in touch with yourself. And those have been moments where I feel out of touch with intuition, is when I'm not prioritizing me. So that's a big one too.
I love that. And that's really powerful, because the question I get a lot in my community is like, when to know the difference between intuition and ego. And my answer is, you learn just through trial and error, and you learn, I should have trusted my gut. But what's your opinion on that? Like, how do you feel between knowing the difference between the two?
That's so good. So yeah, with ego, I try to, when I pull back and I'm like, is this my ego or is this something else? Is deeper than that? Ego is, I almost like, I look at it as visually like that's going to like feel like a visual hug, right? A visual pat on my shoulder, rather than filling me up inside, and filling up my soul with something. So is this going to make me feel better because someone else approved me? And that's ego. Someone else affirmed me. Someone else gave me praise, made me feel like I was the best in the room. And I needed that gratification from an outside source. That lends itself more into ego. And without ego, removing ego from the equation, it's more of walking to the room and getting your own self-gratification without the approval or the pat on the back or the hug or the coaxing push from somebody else. And those things are great. Like, we're human. We all love a great compliment. We all love praise and acknowledgement from another human. Those things are amazing. Like I said, it's wonderful to be getting great feedback. All these things, they're amazing. But ego is outside source driven, is how I think it's outside fed, and
so
listening more to internal would be going away from that.
I love that. And what would you say was your biggest life-changing moment, whether it was in a card reading or just like an intuitive pull? I'd love to hear kind of a story from you where you followed that pull and it was like this grand manifestation moment.
Wow, yeah, that's really great. So I think I'll mention two. So the first was definitely when I had the intuitive hit to even just start. I was sitting on my bed listening to that tarot reader, and it was one of the most in the moment, unplanned things I've ever done. I literally took my phone, picked it up, immediately went on my Instagram stories. No script, no rehearse, no practice, delete and try again, completely in the moment. So who would want me to intuitively pull an affirmation for you? I had this idea. If you'd be interested in it, shoot me a DM. And it was the most in the moment thing I've ever done. And then it took off from there. And
wow.
So that was completely, when I say follow your curiosity, follow your own intuitive pings and hits, it was no overthinking done at all. And then the second was such an amazing moment over the summer of being able to work with an expander of mine. And I remember I was sitting, this is kind of more, I guess, into that following intuitive pings, also manifesting and seeing how those things come in. I would always say, so for me, a huge expander is Melissa Wood. I love her.
I love her.
She's so incredible.
Biggest role models.
Yes, me too. So I would always joke and say, like, I'm gonna be friends with her one day. Like, I'm going to meet her. Like, she's gonna be my friend. I wouldn't say like we're friends, but I did get to meet her. And over the summer, her team put out an email through the newsletter of, if you live in the New York area and you're interested in being a part of our community-based membership photo shoot, email us back with a few pictures, bio, and how Melissa Wood Health has changed your life. And I got selected to be in this photo shoot with, I think it was maybe 12 of us in total, an intimate group of women. It was absolutely incredible. Melissa is even lovelier in person than you could ever imagine. And, you know, so genuine. I got to have some one-on-one time with her on top of it all. And she told me, she was like, you have a magnetic energy. And I was like, oh my God, Melissa Wood told me I have a magnetic energy. God. And that's a little bit of ego, right? Of like wanting someone else to affirm it. But to hear that from your role model, from an expander, oh my God, I was like, this is... It was such a moment of lighting such a fire. It was, and I just crazy. Went to she was hosting a book signing with Yasmin Cheyenne, one of her meditation facilitators. Yasmin is a very successful self-healing coach who's like wonderful in her own right, and I got introduced to her through Melissa Wood's platform, which just launched a book. And she asked Melissa to be like on the panel with her for her book signing of, you know, to be the one interviewing her, asking questions. And so when I was there, I got to meet Yasmin, who was also a great expander and incredible. It was such a refreshing conversation to hear, especially for where I'm at. But when Melissa looked out and she saw me and she was like, hi, and I was like, oh my God, like, she knows me, you know, so that those moments of you're like, whoa, like this is who I look to as who I want to reach, my expander. And I got to actually get to know her, where she went with me saying, hi, how are you? And we're having a conversation. And I'm like, this is, oh my gosh. So, you know, just putting yourself out there like time and time again and being open, right? If I didn't check my inbox that day, I might have missed that opportunity. So it's like remaining open, putting it out there, always saying what you want. The universe is listening. Other people listen too. And not like I didn't pitch like, hey, I want to meet her, put me in a photo shoot. It fell in, but that's often how manifestation can work, is it's like, here you go. Oh my God.
This is so magical. That is like the coolest story. I actually went to her in-person event. Were you at that?
I didn't, but I heard it was so good. I wish I went. The workout, and it was in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah. In Brooklyn. And it was just so amazing hearing you talk about that, because I remember being in that room and I was like, this is so expansive of me, of her, like for me to be in that room was so expansive, similarly to what you're saying, because I was like, this is possible for like me and my brand. Yes. And that was like a huge breakthrough moment. I can't believe you just shared that, because I had such a similar experience.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, it gave me chills a little bit. That's like, and that's, you know, what we hope as seeing someone who is your expander, right? You see yourself in them. That's why they're an expander. And it's so, it just lights a fire. It's so motivational. It's so exhilarating. And you really are like, this is possible, you know, especially when you hear her story and you're like, wow, you know, like it's being genuine. It's staying true to yourself. People can see through it when you're not, when it's a facade. So when you're being genuine, that I feel like is such a key factor in anyone who's reached success. I call it the Oprah effect. I'm like, I don't know if I made that up or if I stole it from somebody. Like, if someone else said it and I'm forgetting,
Yeah.
but I just always say it's like the Oprah effect. I'm like, if I could have the Oprah effect, the Melissa Wood effect, that effect on people,
love
like
that.
she put herself in that
Yes.
category for me of like the Oprah
Yeah.
effect, right? When you're listening to her in one of her interviews and you're like, I can take on the world. And that is what I
Yes.
want people to feel when they leave a
I
session.
love
And
that.
that's similar to you want your clients to feel that way. So that
Yeah.
is just, I love it.
I love that, Samantha. This is such a beautiful conversation. I need to book a reading with you,
Oh,
but I
yes.
also want to give you the space to share where people can find you, where they can book with you, pimp yourself out.
Yes, thank you. So on Instagram at Samantha Tatiana. My website is samanthatatiana.com. Like I said, as we're recording this currently in the moment, it's not live yet, but it will be in like the next 2 weeks. So probably by the time this is up,
Nice.
it should be up and
Yeah.
running. I'm launching a subscription program for my intuitive card readings where you can receive a personal reading once a week. So 4 weeks worth of
Ooh.
readings like sent to your inbox,
Yeah.
recorded, little write up about it. You can also just do a one-time session as well.
Yeah.
And more will be coming. I'm getting certified in Pilates soon. Like there's a lot that I see
so
building
cool.
from here to make a full circle wellness community.
I love
But yes, Instagram and my website are my main things. I'm getting better with TikTok. I feel like I'm late on the TikTok game. I'm getting better with it. But yeah, Instagram and my website.
I love it so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I can't wait to see what else you create.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited and thank you for having me. This was such a great chat and I'm just so excited to see everything that you put out. I'm so happy we got connected. This was amazing.
Thank you.